Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 31 of the OK Listen Here Roundtable. I am your host, Dawson Haywood, and the Olympic break is over. I am off from vacation, and as usual, I am joined here today by the greatest sports mind that I know, Mr. Philip Pilkington. Philip, how are we doing today?
I'm good. There's a lot to talk about. Sorry I made you wait so long as we're recording this very late, but I had a late press conference I had to go to that ran even later than it was supposed to. But I'm pumped up, ready to talk some racing. It was a exciting weekend. I think even more so than just the last lap was exciting. So um, I'm ready to go. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. We got a lot to cover. I got a lot of notes in front of me and a lot of topics that we're going to discuss. Been gone for 3 weeks, but we are back and ready for business. So, before we get started, this episode is brought to you by the OK Listen Here Premium blog. Elevate your fan experience with the OK Listen Here Premium blog. For $5 a month, unlock the gateway to exclusive, in-depth analyses of your cherished teams, unfiltered opinions, and exciting giveaways. Don't miss out. Visit oklistenhere.com today to sign up. So, usually we do our race reviews after weekly news and topics to discuss, which we have a lot of weekly news and topics to discuss. But I feel like it would be a sin if we did not start off with what transpired on Sunday night. So, for those of you that have been living under a rock, maybe you're not a NASCAR fan and you're just listening because you're a fan of Philip. Lord knows I've listened to a podcast just to hear Philip talk. But essentially, what happened, Austin Dillon in overtime, last lap, last turn, uh, from 4 car lengths away, ran up on Joey Logano's bumper, spun him out, and then as Denny Hamlin was passing Austin Dillon for the win, he checked down on him, spun him out, right rear. Philip, correct me if my terminology here is wrong, but right rear hooked him, ran him into the wall, and then went on to win. Austin Dillon, NASCAR issued several penalties for, but Philip, in the moment, watching the race, what were your initial thoughts on that win?
Yeah, it was a definition of desperate times calls for desperate measures. Um, what he did to Joey, that was a non NASCAR move, I thought. In the heat of the moment. In the heat of the moment, also, I thought Denny, what he did to Denny was kind of a non NASCAR move, but we'll kind of get into the aftermath later. And I think maybe that one actually wasn't as bad as it initially looked. Um, Once you see the S&T data and all that. But hey, if it was going to happen to anybody, have it happen to Joey and Denny. I mean, how many times have one of those guys, as Denny right rear hooked Kyle Larson and gotten away with it, or how many times has Joey, even though he claims he doesn't, full sent somebody into a corner? Maybe not from 4 car lengths back. Maybe it was a little more than what Denny did to say Byron and in Darlington 2 years ago, but still unnecessary either way. But hey, when you got one shot to get in the playoffs, you got to take advantage of it. They had gone 50 races without a top five, and they knew this was their one chance. So AD did what he had to do, and he's not going to the playoffs, or at least not as of yet. He's got 3 more weeks to win a race, but um, hey, it was exciting. I was off my feet, that's for sure.
Yeah, all the attention is on NASCAR, and it's kind of a wild statistic that they haven't even had a top five in 50 races with someone like Kyle Busch on the team. I think that's more of a testament
They have it. Just
towards.
the three hasn't had
Oh,
a
the
top
three
five.
hasn't. Okay, okay, that makes more sense. Oh yeah, because Kyle Busch won a few races last year, but
Yeah.
but yeah, obviously we're recording this on Wednesday night, August 14th. So a lot of the penalties have already been issued. The SMT data is out there for us to take a look at. Oh, speaking of which, we're going to start recordings on Wednesday night so that we can get kind of if penalties are issued, just get a little more knowledge about the breakdown, so that we can provide better content to you guys. A little side note there, but yeah, it was definitely a desperate move. There's no doubt about that. It was a desperate move by Austin Dillon. I think this right here raises the question. Now, I think the penalties that were issued among him, and I think what NASCAR did was correct, in not allowing him to make playoffs. But I think the question now has been raised to should NASCAR potentially change how drivers get into the playoffs, because I mean, Austin Dillon, who's been terrible all season long, gets a win and sitting in 32nd or 30th or wherever he was before this race, and then let's just say the win counted for whatever reason. Now he's all of a sudden in the playoffs, knocking somebody out of the playoffs that has been consistent all year, just hasn't sealed the deal. So do you think that this is something, do you think the playoff, I guess how a driver gets a playoff bid needs to be evaluated after this? Do you think it'll be evaluated after this? What comes of this?
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. So, they used to have the same rules, but you had to be top 30 in points. Austin Dillon came in outside of that top 30, but with the win, it put him into the top 30. I haven't looked yet since now he's been docked 25 points.
I believe he's 31st or 32nd. He's below the 30 line. I know that much.
So they implemented the Corey LaJoie rule because he almost won in Atlanta a couple years ago, and everybody was wanting to see him in the playoffs. I'm okay with putting more emphasis on wins, but maybe there still does need to be a line. But hey, you look at it and say there's a guy, if you do have a win you're in and you don't just take the top 16, and even if that win you're in is say 20th up, maybe the guy in 20th with 3-4 races to go is all but mathematically eliminated and this thing could still happen. So look, somebody's going to be desperate at the end of the year, regardless of what you do. And we can sit here and talk about the playoffs all night and then forget to talk about the penalties and whether we agree with them and whether we agree with the move or what Denny said and what Joey said, which I'd rather get into, because I think right now at the end of the day, somebody's going to be desperate and they're going to make a desperate move. And sometimes desperate move is riding the wall like Ross Chastain, and it doesn't hurt anybody. And sometimes a desperate move is doing what Austin Dillon did the other night. So just the way point system works, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we could sit here and debate it till the cows come home. I'm not okay with some sort of a cutoff, or I am okay with some sort of a cutoff. 30 guys, you finish 33rd in points out of 33 or 34 full-time drivers. Yeah, should you really be in the playoffs because everybody else wrecked at Talladega and you didn't? Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, to that point, and I know you want to move on from this conversation, but I did write about this the other day. But I do think that they need to have, a win gets you an automatic bid if you're like 20th and above or 25th and above, something along those lines. Because, like you said, desperate times are going to call for desperate measures. People are going to do things just to get themselves in a position to win. And obviously, that chain reacts to what we saw on Sunday night. So I do agree with you in the sense that I think something needs to get done. Obviously, I don't have the perfect answer for that. I'm just an amateur fan here. So, but yeah, I do want to get into Denny and Joey's reaction to it. Obviously, the two drivers that were affected the most by this, Joey Logano, he was about to secure his second win of the season. Yeah, so he was about to secure a second win of the season. Denny Hamlin, of course, once Joey was wrecked, had an opportunity to win it. I think he would have gone on to win it had Dillon not wrecked him. And so obviously on pit road had some choice words to say about Dillon's actions, but one thing that kind of struck me a little bit, kind of struck a nerve with me, was Joey Logano's reaction to it, which he was fined $50,000 for. But yeah, Joey was driving down pit lane. People are out on pit lane. Austin Dillon's family, including his, I believe it's a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, are also out there. And he goes and he acts like he's going to plow through them. There's something about that just strikes a nerve with me. I don't see that okay. Those kids and his wife did not do anything. I think $50,000, quite frankly, I think that's too little for a punishment like that, because at this point you're looking at assault charges. He obviously did not plow through someone's family, but he sure as shit did act like he was going to. And that's just not okay. I understand being hot-headed and not being able to think straight in the moment, but to threaten to plow through someone's family, that's just not okay.
Yeah, I agree. You're talking about the safety. It's very easy for one of the kids because they are so young to even run out more in front of the car because they're kids and kids don't know. And you could have really injured somebody. Look, if he wanted to go out there and try and impede Austin from doing his burnout the way that Denny did to Alex Bowman a handful of years ago at Martinsville, okay, whatever, right? Be mad at Dillon all you want if you need to go in there and not too hard, but kind of slam into him as he's doing his burnout. Whatever, right? That's the guy who wrecked you. That guy's in a race car. He's strapped
And that's
in.
NASCAR. And that's NASCAR, too.
You're using a car to hit a car. But you're using a car to hit people. I mean, I know he didn't, but That and then just the comments after. Like, I understand your tics. You got every right to be ticked. I know we'll get into Denny here in a second. Um, but it just seemed like he played like an ultra victim card. Like, if this was Chris Buescher or Tyler Reddick, who do not wreck people ever, going out there kind of playing the victim card a little heavier, okay, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
Joey, come on, you've done it. Maybe not from 4 car lengths back, but he didn't put you in harm's way. It was racing. Was it really a racing move? Probably not. Um, I don't know. He just, I can't remember exactly what he said because it's been 72 hours, but there was something that he said that at the time kind of resonated with me. It was just kind of like, kind of saying, "Oh, I never would have done that." Yeah, you would have.
Yeah.
You got every right to be mad, but you would have done it too.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we'll get into kind of what Denny and his reaction to it, but I think it's kind of funny. All three of them, Austin Dillon, Denny Hamlin, and Joey Logano, they all three of them kind of have shown a little bit of hypocrisy here. Um, you know, Joey Logano and Denny Hamlin, they will obviously bump people out of the way. They've been known to wreck people before to put themselves in a better position. And then, of course, Austin Dillon, he has complained about being right rear hooked before. And then he goes and does this, which is just absolutely egregious. And obviously the penalties that were bestowed upon him show that. And so I think all three of them are a little, they got the hypocrite stamp put on their head. But let's get into what Denny Hamlin said, Philip.
So in a roundabout way, he kind of said, "Don't hate the player, hate the game." He was more mad at NASCAR for, again, somebody's always going to be desperate, but he really, I don't think was really mad at Austin for doing it, other than the fact that it was a right rear hook. But the fact that Austin wrecked him, I don't think he was mad that Austin did it. He was just mad that it happened and mad that he was put in that situation. But I think he understood. I mean, he even said, if I was in his shoes, I may have done it too. So I thought Denny handled that with the utmost maturity, handled it very well. And I mean, he's right. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Austin had to do what he had to do based off the rule book that the drivers were handed. And, he did what he had to do to get in the playoffs, I guess, or at the time get in the playoffs. So Denny was just the innocent bystander that kind of got caught in the crossfire, I guess.
Yeah, and to that point, when you're in 32nd place, you do get desperate, and at that point, it's like, you know what, we're gonna try this out, and that in my head, I don't think that there is any way that Austin Dillon's crew chief or spotter or whoever was involved in the decision making of that wreck. Now, I understand it was a split second decision, but surely they have been groomed enough to understand that, okay, if we wreck somebody intentionally, two people intentionally, this is going to penalize us in some way, shape, or form. But it's like, even if they do penalize us, what's the worst that happens? I mean, looking at the penalties that were put on them, like, they weren't going to make playoffs anyways. I mean, they're still not making playoffs now, but they get to keep all the money from the purse on Sunday, and they still have a win check marked on them. Now, I think there needs to be a big fat asterisk on it, or either that or vacate it or something. And I don't think they should have earned the whole purse of it. Because again, at the end of the day, like, RCR is still in a better position right now than they were in on Saturday evening. I mean, that's just the plain and simple of it. No, they're not going to make playoffs, but they were going to make playoffs anyways. Yeah, they're spotter suspended, but they're bottom of the barrel team. I mean, they're borderline the worst team in NASCAR right now. And so RCR, like I said, they're in a better position now than they were last week. And so to be quite frank with you, I'm looking at these penalties here, and I think at the very least the purse should have been split in some way, shape, or form. Just to add to it, I don't think RCR should get paid the full amount for that, because it did cost other teams, financial gain. So
Yeah.
there's that take.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but right now NASCAR chartered teams kind of, I mean, they're not all the same in money, but the purse more towards, I think it doesn't really, it helps Austin Dillon and the crew members more than it's going to help RCR specifically, the way purses are kind of divvied up amongst the team. So it more helps him. And, to be fair, those pit crew guys, I mean, they earned it, right? they got their guy out first every time. They gave him a rocket ship. He had the best car all night. So, um, really credit to the 3 team. And I guess you kind of hate to take it away from those guys because at the end of the day, they earned it, and they're the ones who reap the biggest benefits. A lot of times from a win, it's the driver himself and the guys in the shop and the guys pitting the car. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, that's really all that I have on that situation. Well, I mean, lists off the penalties, just because we haven't listed them off. But obviously, Dillon and RCR are going to be able to keep this win with no deductions to the purse. The win does not count for playoffs, so their automatic bid does not count. They were docked 25 playoff points and owner points, and of course, Dillon Spotter was suspended for 3 races. But Phil,
What
you
were your
got any
thoughts
more
on
on this
the
topic?
spotters? Well, I was going to say, what were your thoughts? I guess because you never really got into it. What were your thoughts on the move itself? Do
Well,
you
the
think it was a
thought,
racing move, a non-racing move?
no,
And then after that, I want to
absolutely
talk about
not.
the spotter
Absolutely not.
situation.
I mean, look, here's the thing. Now, obviously, I'm not a professional racer. I'm not an analyst. I'm not an expert. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be. Here's what I do know. What Austin Dillon did on Sunday night is something that I would do in Gran Turismo 7. And whenever I'm in, second, third place, just trying to get a win. That is a move that I would make. And it's intentional. And that's not something where if you're racing fairly, then you're going to get that win. And so I get the little bumps from behind, and maybe run them up high on the track and then pass them, but to completely obliterate them and spin them out, I think that's a bit of a it's intentional. It's a very aggressive move, and I didn't like the move, plain and simple. I mean, it's aggressive. It's fun to watch, if you're the casual, but if you're someone that sits down and watches every single race, obviously that move is not a NASCAR race, like everyone is saying. And like NASCAR said, it's not a NASCAR move. And then for him to right rear hook Denny the way that he did, I mean, that could have, I mean, I get the cars are safer nowadays than ever before, but I mean, that could have ended bad. Like it really could have. And that's just something that I think needs to be taken into consideration. But it wasn't a fair move. He choked on the restart. I listened to Denny's actions detrimental here, but he choked on the restart and he lost it. He lost to Joey. And to be quite honest with you, don't be a punk. Accept that you lost and move on. So that's my take on it.
Yeah, I have more of a problem with what he did, and I kind of was going to hit on this earlier and said we get back around to it. I have more problem with what he did to Joey than what he did to Denny because
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
look at the if you and normally the right hook is the bad thing, especially at the intermediates. We've had injuries, um, but when you look at the S&T data, so he washed up the track after he took Joey out. He
Mm-hmm.
kept his wheel straight. Now, him keeping his wheel straight, just based off where his nose was pointed, costed him to come down the track. But at the end of the day, the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, and you just got to get to the finish line as quick as possible. Denny came up the track naturally. You cannot hug the bottom at Richmond with any sort of speed. If he would have not hugged the
Mm-hmm.
bottom, or if he would have hugged the bottom, he would have lost just
Yeah.
outright. So I
Yeah,
think
Denny is
Denny
not to
came up
blame
the
for that
track.
at all.
No, Denny's not. But I think Denny came up the track naturally, running the natural racing line. Austin Dillon was off the racing line. He gunned it, just trying to get to the start finish line as soon as possible in a straight line. And when it did, it brought him down. Denny came up. I didn't really view it from the S&T data and looking at the replay from more the kind of that angle coming from turn one. I didn't think he really right hooked Denny. I'm still okay with the penalty and everything because I think what he did to Joey was not a racing move. But looking back, kind of what he did to Danny was just, I think that was both kind of a victim of circumstance and just where the two cars were on the track, they were naturally going to meet, and it didn't work out for Denny. So, um, yeah, I just don't have as much of a problem with that one. And then, I know his spotter said wreck him, and it was interesting. So Larry McReynolds addressed this yesterday, and he wasn't telling NASCAR not to suspend the spotter. I think he said that you kind of have to here, but he brought up the point of when you get that late in the race and chaos is happening, and you're a spotter or crew chief, you become a fan. because you know the driver's not really listening to you anymore, and you're not even really listening to yourself, and you say the same things a fan would say, and probably there are Austin Dillon fans going, "Crap, it's Rick Nitty, it's Rick Nitty," and
Austin
that's what he
Dillon has
did.
fans like that?
Maybe people that just loyal to the three, I guess. But
Yeah.
you know, he thinks that's what the spotter was doing, and I agree. And this is from an opinion standpoint and a judging the spotter as a person standpoint. I really don't think he was ill will towards Denny. I think it was just like, oh, wreck him, kind of thing. However, when you're NASCAR, you can't split hairs and say, well, he didn't really mean it. He just was cheering his guy on. So I think it was right of NASCAR to suspend him because at the end of the day, he said what he said on the radio. But I don't think that we should really judge him as a person for that because, in my opinion, again, he was cheering his guy on. And how many times have we, got in the emotions of being a fan and wanted somebody to take a receiver's head off coming
Yeah.
across the middle, even though we really don't want to see a guy get darn near decapitated. You're like, just lay his butt out, or just peg this bastard with a baseball. How many times do we get emotional with our teams? And I think that's just kind of what happened. So,
Yeah.
the suspension is right, but I have no ill will towards him.
Yeah, no, that's actually a unique perspective. That's why I like talking to you about these things because that's something that I hadn't even considered. Now I have to go back and look at the tape about Austin just gunning it and Denny naturally coming up, and that's just it was inevitable that they were going to collide. So I can't give you an opinion on that, but it's something that I will go look back at again, just to again continue to form that opinion. But then, with the whole spotter thing, and I'm sure you can agree with me on this. Like, I think I agree with you 110%. I think it was one of those things. I believe that it was one of those things where you have got so many things flooding your mind in that moment. Your driver is sitting there in second. He just wrecked somebody. He has a chance to win, and he just his brain probably was just not functioning. Like I say stuff when I get excited that I just don't even like. I'm pretty sure that I have cursed in front of my father-in-law a few times. They don't curse like at all, but I've cursed in front of my father-in-law
No,
like
they're not degenerates like my family and yours.
No, they're not. But like I've cursed in front of my in-laws time and time again, but not because I was meaning any ill will towards it. It was just a natural reaction to the circumstances. And so I think you bring up a good point. As an individual, I don't think we can look at the spotter and be like, oh, he's a horrible guy for wanting Austin Dillon to wreck Denny. Now, here's what I will say to that point, though. At the NASCAR level, which Denny so claims it is the highest form of motorsports. This is it. This is the top of the line, arguably. I think there has to be some level of professionalism that is just burned into you as somebody that is helping. I'm not going to say make decisions because spotters are not there to make decisions for the driver. They're more so there for safety more than anything. But as someone that is in the ear, there is a line on things that you can say and things that you can't say. And wreck 'em is just one of those things that you can't say. And I feel that it's irresponsible. I feel like the spotter is more irresponsible than anything in this scenario. He should have been more responsible in that moment to where telling his driver to wreck somebody should not have even been a thought that crossed his head, much less be the thing that comes out of his mouth and into his earpiece. And so irresponsibility, irresponsible, yeah, absolutely. But intentionally malicious, no, absolutely not.
Okay, I can get behind that. I like that. I like that analogy.
Yeah. So
So, should we go into the rest of the weekly news, or since we're already on this, should we go ahead and go into the rest of the race and really the tires, because the tires are
yeah, we'll finish. We'll
the
finish
thing that we
the.
haven't that nobody's finished talking about because everybody's been so caught up in
Yeah. So
this.
so this week NASCAR well, they didn't introduce them, but we had the prime and the option tires, which obviously the prime are like your standard NASCAR tires, if I'm not mistaken there. And then the option tires have more grip, but with that also more wear. So they're faster tires, but they wear down a lot quicker. I don't really have an opinion on this because at the end of the day, every team has. I personally, I like the more variety, just because it adds to more the strategy of the race. I understand that people don't like it though. because NASCAR has always ran, pretty much one tire across the board, and they try to make things as equal as possible. But I'm all for adding a little bit to the strategy. I mean, everyone used the option tires. It was just a matter of when they used them that was there. And so I liked it. And I think there was one point Daniel Suarez was like, he just looked like a rocket ship because he had the option tires and no one else did. And I mean, so it was fun. It put him in the lead for a little bit, put him in the spotlight for a little bit, and I think it opens up the opportunity to have that in races, which can't hurt with sponsors. So, personally, especially at tracks like Richmond, I'm okay with this. I think this was a good move for NASCAR. I do think they need to do a little bit more research and development on it, just to get it right, more testing, get the teams more familiar with it. But overall, I like the different options. I've gone on record in this podcast before saying I wish that they would have a soft, hard, and moderate tire in NASCAR. So, and again, just simply because it adds to the strategy of everything.
Yeah, I wish that NASCAR did not have to implement this, but I think this short track package is so hard to pass with and is so boring. I think you need another level to it. So I like it. I think it's something that should be implemented on all the flat tracks. Now, Chase Briscoe, as well as some other drivers, I believe, but the only one I can remember off the top of my head is Chase Briscoe, said, hey, why don't all the tires be the softer one and we just see how we can do? That's total driver talk because that's the mindset of it had more grip and they love grip, right? So they wanted to be able to do that. But then I think that kind of takes away from the fun of it as well. And then yeah, they would have to manage them a little more, but they would probably end up having more sets because they would have those, and then it would really just kind of become what we were watching in the past at Richmond. Still managing tires, you probably just make one more stop during a stage, and you're a little faster earlier. So I kind of like the two sets. Maybe two is or isn't the number. Maybe three is. I don't know, but I liked that. I think it was very strategic as to when crew chiefs used them. You think of Kyle Busch trying to get his lap back, Michael McDowell coming, knowing that he was the lucky dog and was going to be pinned behind a lot of lap down cars, and they're probably going to get lapped again. So he put him on. You mentioned Daniel Suarez does it for track position, and then everybody kind of does it there at the end because you don't want to be the only guy not on them. So I liked it. I think it's something they should keep unless they, magically fix the short track package where it can be as racy as it used to be in the past. But this is what it takes to make it racy. I was content watching this race, despite no natural cautions. I thought the strategy played a huge part in it. I thought pit road speeding penalties played a huge part in it, and I thought it was a very entertaining first 397 laps, despite only the two stage cautions.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can. I won't go too terribly deep in this, but I do know that NASCAR kind of wants the field to be pretty much equal. Like if they could have every single car out there operate the exact same, they would. And I think they try to get as close to that as possible. But personally, I see why that is good for a casual fan. But for someone like me, I want to see what the teams can do with more variety, more so than just the tires. I want to see them configure their car in ways that may give them an edge here, give them an edge there. You put get an advantage here, but you take away from this, or et cetera, et cetera. I wish there was more of that in NASCAR, just as someone that does watch the races every single week, because I feel like back then, and someone you can fact check me on this. I'm kind of speaking out of my ass here a little bit, but back then you'd have guys that their cars, they would just have it figured out and dialed for that 1 maybe 2 weeks and just be really really good, and then nothing else happens. And so I think I would like to see more variety, more than just the tires. But again, that comes from someone who I like to see what the teams can produce. I like to see, maybe a JTG. Obviously they're a bottom of the barrel team, but maybe they start coming up a little bit because they start figuring things out that other teams don't. Like that happens whenever you added that, and I think NASCAR restricts a lot of creativity with the teams, and I think there needs to be more variety. But again, that's my little rant on that. But all that to say, I like the tires.
Just quick response to you. I kind of wish I get they're wanting everybody to be equal and have the spec parts, but I almost wish they could go spec parts, but back with the old kind of rule book to where you could change more things. There's just so you can still change a handful of things, but it's a lot less than you used to be able to. I understand the spec parts making everything equal, but maybe we could half go back to the old ways. But I don't know. It has been a pretty exciting Gen 7 car, with the exception of the short tracks. So
Yeah.
who knows?
Yeah, and like you said, I think the tires. I think that makes the short tracks a little bit more exciting
Of course.
than in years past. So, but all right. Well, Richmond, that was quite the race. Enough for us to spend 30 minutes on it. But Philip, we've got about 3 weeks worth of content that we've got to review. So kind of what I did here, I went through NASCAR's Twitter, just kind of took all their headlines and compiled them all together in chronological order. So we'll start off with Corey LaJoie will not return to the Spire number 7 car next season. LaJoie has not won in any of the 3 major series in NASCAR. Before getting a ride in the Cup Series with BK Racing in 2017, he had not raced in even half a season in any NASCAR series. I couldn't really figure this out through my half-assed research here, but how did he get elevated to a full-time Cup Series ride, like without anything to do with NASCAR prior?
Well, he had been around the pits since he was a little kid with his dad,
Yeah,
obviously being an Xfinity Series champion. But I think it was kind of one of those things where he was young. There's definitely talent there. And BK Racing was just such a small team. They knew that if they could land a full time driver that would bring in a full time sponsor, that was the way to keep their doors open. And that's what they needed. They needed 36 races or 38, including the exhibition races. And when teams are that way, they've just got to find a way to keep the doors open and keep the employees paid. And when that opportunity fell and they knew they were going to have sponsorship, they offered him a deal. And obviously, I mean, it worked out. I mean, he ends up going on to Spire. I mean, he's been competitive in a handful of races throughout his career and not just on super speedways. So that's, yeah, I know it's not really a straightforward answer. I don't really remember exact details to him landing that ride, but that's kind of what I got.
yeah. Well, what do you think about him not returning? I mean, obviously he hasn't produced much with Spire. Spire is one of those teams where I feel like they're wanting to bring in a lot of young talent, kind of be a farm team for some of the upper echelon teams, like your Trackhouse and your Hendrick. But do you think this is a good move for Spire? And who do you, I mean, again, seems like every week something goes on to where we get reintroduced with the whole speculation who takes that seat next year.
Yeah, the weird, Spire was frustrated because Carson Hocevar was out there just outperforming Corey LaJoie. It was definitely his worst year in the Gen 7 car. And I guess that's why they did what they did. I was totally blindsided by this move. I think Corey was. I talked to Jeff Gluck last week from The Athletic about it, and, I said, I asked him straight up. I was like, were you blindsided? Do you know if Corey was? And he was like, yeah, he had 1 year left on his contract, and they had built this team around him. They were bringing in Rodney Childers next year, supposedly to be his crew chief, and that's what he thought. And they were really ready to fully invest in Corey LaJoie, or so the whole racing world thought. And yeah, you're gonna have Michael McDowell next year, who's probably more talented than Corey LaJoie, but he's also a heck of a lot older. You're gonna run with Carson Hocevar, and now you've got another open seat. I don't know if they just keep Zane Smith on loan now that Suarez has been extended, or what the deal is there. But um, it was weird. I was shocked. Like I said, I think Corey was caught off guard, and um, yeah, I don't know. I do have one speculation as to, do you want me to go ahead and get into what that seat could be?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because I'm
Yeah.
one of those where when it comes to who's taking what seat, I'm clueless. So yes, please.
So I think probably the realistic thing is Zane Smith stays on loan to him. That's the realistic thing to say. The long shot crazy theory is they had that big sponsorship deal last year that they landed, which allowed them to acquire another charter. They've got a lot of money. Things are not going good at RCR. Spire already bought Kyle Busch Motorsports.
They got the relationship.
He does have 1 year left on his deal, but you got to think 2311 bought out the rest of Tyler Reddick's deal. if Spire has the money, could they buy out the rest of Kyle Busch's contract and bring in Kyle Busch? I don't think it happens, but I wouldn't be, jaw dropped to the floor shocked if it did.
I mean, there's a multiverse out there in the world. There's a multiverse out there that happens. I think it would be fun to see that happen. Quite frankly, I know that Busch doesn't he have close ties with Spire, trying to get Brexton in there at some point when he comes of age and can actually drive in the big boy series. So I mean, I think it makes sense. I mean, it would make sense that Kyle Busch would go to Spire and hold that seat until Brexton came in and Brexton takes over that seat. And I mean, honestly, if Spire has the money, I almost feel like they'd be stupid not to, because you have a kid that's on the up and coming who is blowing everyone out of the water at every level that he's competed at. I don't follow Brexton too much, but at least on social media, from what I see, he has got some real talent. This kid is going to be special. It's crazy to say that about, how old is he? 8, 12, something? Somewhere in that range?
Yeah, 8, something like that. A lot of coaches. I think Keelan Harvick's the one who's about 12.
Yeah, so, I mean, but he's going to have such a huge backing whenever he comes. I seriously think Spire needs to put all of their chips in on the Busch family, quite honestly. Invest in that, because I mean, when you think NASCAR, you can't talk about the story of NASCAR without talking about the Busch family, and Brexton's only going to continue that legacy. They are a legacy. They will be a legacy family here, like the Elliots. I mean, and so yeah, I think you have. Honestly, if you're Spire, I think you got to go for them. I think you have to.
You got to try. You got to shoot for it.
Hold on, I'm tweeting that out right now.
What happens? You got to go. Yeah. What'd you say?
I'm tweeting something right now.
Yeah.
There you go. I said, at Spire, now that LaJoie is gone, go grab Kyle Busch.
There you go.
Yeah.
Maybe this will be what happens to get Kyle Busch to unblock.
I know. I'm gonna do some influencing in the NASCAR world. Yeah, it's just a thought before we move on from LaJoie, but if Kyle Busch leaves RCR, I know we are getting more in a silly season, a lot of speculating going on here, and this probably is not going to happen. But let's just humor me here for a minute. Once we hit the 40-minute mark, we'll stop talking about this. Let's say Kyle Busch goes to Spire. Spire buys him out, and all that RCR has left is Austin Dillon in an open seat. I don't see RCR being an attractive place for anyone to go. I mean, someone that needs a spot is going to take that spot if it's open. But my hot take here, I think within 10 years, I think RCR will close its doors.
It's either gonna have to do what RFK did and make a huge turn, or it could go under. But as to who takes the seat, they promote one of the other drivers. It's just too late to go get a big name prospect. I mean, you could get a good big name, I guess, another Xfinity prospect. There's still a couple seats to be filled. Still not 100% sure what's going on with that 2311 seat. Sounds like it's going to be Riley Herbst. Not sure what's going to go on at all with the extra front row seat. But I would guess Austin Hill would be the front runner for the job.
Yeah, so I'll put it on our topics for next week, silly season speculation, Spire number 7, and we'll go a little bit more into that just to give us something to talk to. But let's keep this podcast moving and grooving along and try to keep it under an hour and 15 here for the fans. But so got anything else on this move here?
No, not really. I mean,
okay.
I feel like we could go on and on and on about this and about the race, but I feel like we've made our points, and now we can,
Yeah, so just in other news again, just keeping up with NASCAR's Twitter here, but iRacing they continue to work on the NASCAR video game set to be released next year. I think that's going to be very exciting for NASCAR fans. I think it's going to be a NASCAR game unlike anything that we have seen before. iRacing, obviously a big, huge brand in the racing community, the motorsports community. Anyone familiar with their work knows that they're going to produce a good quality game. If you've read any of my blogs before about college football and what I expect out of it, I expect this to be more than just cars going in circles. I want to see some more strategy going towards it, securing sponsors, more team management, more driver management. I like total team control back in the day where you could control all 4 of your drivers on your team. So I hope to see some of that return. But yeah, they are continuing to push a little bit of content to promote the new NASCAR video game next year. Philip, is that something you're going to look at getting when it comes out?
Of course.
What are there any features specifically that you hope are in the game?
Well, I know like I just kind of want to. I mean, obviously, there's a bunch of new stuff that you'd like to see, but like Heat 5 didn't have the duels. I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I hope that if iRacing does do it, when you work your way up, you don't start in a wacky series. You start in ARCA.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be good. And then the other thing I want to do is, you can create your own career, but the one thing you can't do is like you can do with every other sport is you can't take over the career of your favorite driver.
Mm-hmm.
You can only run one season with him. I want to be able to take over William Byron and run out the rest of his career if I want. So I think that'd be another cool thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the issue with Heat 5 that has kind of bugged me and strayed me away from playing it anymore. I'd get to the NASCAR series and I'd be like, okay, that's it's kind of it. I don't really need to do anything else from here, but it's so linear. Once you make it to the top, you get to a top team, you stay a top team, you're winning every race. It just gets boring. There's no variety to it. And so I hope that there is some depth to the game, to the career mode. I hope that there are trials and tribulations that you have to overcome, even if you're 20 years in and have got things figured out. I hope you have to continue to figure things out. That's one thing in college football that I'm slowly finding out about right now, with recruiting. It's such a big thing. You have ups and downs. You can go from winning the national championship one year to being mid-tier of the conference the next year, depending on what your class looks like. And so I understand I'm comparing this NASCAR game to possibly the biggest game to ever release ever. But I just think career mode wise, that's what I pay attention to. I think there needs to be a lot more depth. And then, of course, making sure multiplayer is nice and polished. I think they'll probably make it so that that becomes like an esport thing. People play the new iRacing NASCAR game competitively, like they do a Call of Duty or a Fortnite or, whatever it is that you're playing. So,
yeah, the one thing I did like about the Heat games, I feel like the tracks drove more like the real tracks, and like
yeah.
it was like like the old NASCAR games. Like you kind of stayed in a pack regardless of where you were.
Mm-hmm.
Like you didn't get spread out at Charlotte. That always kind of drove me nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. So be on the lookout for more content about the new game coming out next year. We'll continue to keep you guys in the loop if anything new comes out, because Lord knows I'm a video game nut. So obviously with the Olympic break, NASCAR has to do something, but we're at the point where they have released their NASCAR mid-season superlatives, but it's not really the middle of the season. It's the end. We're nearing the end of the season, but we'll go through this list here, Philip. I want to know if any of these surprise you. Driver of the year is Kyle Larson. Team of the year is Hendrick Motorsports, with JGR and 23XI being the other 2 nominees. Biggest breakout is Ty Gibbs. Most pleasant surprise, Alex Bowman. Unluckiest driver, Ty Gibbs. Comeback driver of the year, Chase Elliott. Bowman and Gragson are the other 2 nominees. Best silly season pickup, Noah Gragson. And doing more with less award, Carson Hocevar. Is there anything on this list that you would change, Philip?
I guess I don't want to double up Hocevar, but I would put him as more of a pleasant surprise than Bowman. Bowman's kind of putting up, I mean, he was having a good year last year till he got hurt. When Bowman's healthy, he runs pretty consistent in the top 10, so back half the top 10. So I wouldn't say he's like a pleasant surprise, but yeah, that'd be about it.
Yeah, well, it's a Hendrick driver, so of course they're going to put him there. But yeah, I think Hocevar, the doing more with less than the pleasant surprise. I think you can kind of tie them in together a little bit. But I agree with you there. Silly season pickup. Yeah, I like the Noah Gragson SHR. I mean, even though they have him for 1 year, that was probably the best silly season pickup for him. Yeah, there's nothing really here that I disagree with. So we can continue to move on from that. That was just something I think NASCAR released just to have a little bit of content during the Olympic break. So, in other news, Juan Pablo Montoya will return to the Cup Series and drive for 23XI and the number 50 car at Watkins Glen this year. So, uh, Mr. Personality himself is going to come back. Going to be a fun time with him. I mean, uh, cool. That's all I got to say about
Yeah.
Juan Pablo. I think I'm.
Anytime you've got him,
Sorry, go ahead.
anytime you've got a guy who's won races at the Cup Series level coming back and doing a one-off, especially for a big team, it's always fun. Obviously, he's a road course ringer, But hey, since he has been in a Cup car last, he has won the Indy 500, so he even has a little more to his accolades since doing it. Since last being in the Cup Series, not saying that that's going to help him anymore at Watkins Glen in a couple months, but hey, welcome back, Juan Pablo. It'll be good for NASCAR, good for marketing, obviously with him being from Columbia.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, good to have an old guy back.
And yeah, and speaking of our South American friends or south of the United States friends, Daniel Suarez becomes the first NASCAR driver to have 3 International Series wins in just 1 year: a Cup Series win, a NASCAR Mexico win, and a NASCAR Brazil win. So the first time that has ever happened before. Does this you think this kind of do you think that Daniel Suarez's marketability in Mexico and South America, do you think that might be part of why Trackhouse has decided to extend him?
No, I don't think so. I mean, because the marketing thing is more of a NASCAR thing. But I think Trackhouse extended him because I think they want to keep him around. I think that it would be a shame to let him go. I think he's finally reaching his full Cup Series potential. Um, he's got to win this year. Yeah, it was a super speedway, but this guy is an Xfinity Series champion, so um, I'm glad to see him get extended. Congratulations on winning, all across the globe. Proves that NASCAR really is the top stock car series and why everybody's trying to get here. Because when our guys leave, they win, and it's good more marketing for NASCAR for him to go down there and do that. But nah, I think maybe that's why sponsors were in on him, and then a team wants sponsorship. So
Yeah. So there you go. So the next 2 tidbits of news that I have for you, Philip, I'm just going to read the headlines here, and I need you to react to them because I know nothing about any of this, and I know this is kind of your area where you pick up where I slack. But Spire announced that Travis Peterson has signed a multi-year contract to crew chief Michael McDowell and the number 71 team starting in 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but Peterson and McDowell are currently together at Front Row Motorsports, and so they're going to be together for a few more years over with Spire when McDowell transfers.
exactly, and this is a great job by Spire because look, at the end of the day, you're getting a guy who's older. There's a lot of talent there, but he's not the Kyle Busch is the world, and you want to be able to get the most out of him that you can. And the best way to get the most out of a driver, other than good equipment, is having him with a crew chief that he is very familiar with. So smart move by them. Glad to see those two guys staying together.
Yep, absolutely. And then Junior Motorsports announces that Connor Zilic, correct me if I said that wrong, will drive the number 88 car full time in the 2025 Xfinity Series. Phil, what can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so Zilich is young, only 18 years old, but if you look at his ARCA East stats, he's only ran 6 races. He has 6 top 10s and 4 wins. If you look at his ARCA stats, 4 races, 4 top 10s and 3 wins. If you look at his Truck Series stats, 1 race, 1 top 10. Look, he's one of the top sought after prospects. He probably was the top prospect that was not already on a deal to be an Xfinity Series ride either next year or the year after that, based off age. So somebody had to swipe him up. It was about time. Kid's showing a lot of promise, and I think him and like William Swalich are kind of the next group of guys to come up and be futures of the sport.
There you go. Thanks for that analysis, Philip. So we'll wrap up the weekly news with a little bit of personal news for each of for a few of the drivers over the last 3 weeks. Tyler Reddick and Daniel Suarez, they got married during the Olympic break.
No, they both got married. They didn't get married.
Sorry. Yes, they both got married. They both got married over the Olympic break. Cole Custer and his wife welcomed a baby boy to the world. And last, but absolutely most certainly not least, Natalie Decker is pregnant. And we are going to have a spawn of Natalie Decker roam this earth.
Well, I'm sorry to hear for your sake that she's pregnant, because this means you can't bag on her for not getting a ride because she's pregnant. So
I know.
You can't be like, why aren't you getting a ride? Well,
there's your answer.
Bag on her. Yeah.
Well, look,
you don't want to cause a miscarriage because you get put in the wall.
Here's the thing. First and foremost, let me preface this with this. I'm very happy for Natalie and her husband, and a baby is such a blessing on this earth, and very happy for them that they're bringing a new life to this earth. It's a beautiful thing to go through, and so obviously very happy for them. Now, let me put on my asshole NASCAR hat. let me put my asshole fan hat on for just a second, okay? Now, remember all the nice things that I just said, please, because I understand that this is cancel material here. But if Natalie Decker was serious about racing, she would have waited until the off season and would have tried to get more rides this year, waited for the season and get pregnant during the off season, and just cut out next year. You're in the middle of the season, Natalie. What are we doing? You got to get a ride home, girl.
No, the season's about to
end. It is, I know.
There's no true off season in NASCAR.
No, there is not.
9 months, the season's 10.
She just should retire. She just needs to retire then.
Maybe that she should do. But hey, maybe she'll be like Serena Williams. She'll come back from the pregnancy better. Who knows?
How much better is better, Philip?
Yeah, how much better was better for Serena Williams? She dominated.
Well, we're talking about Natalie Decker here. We were talking about Natalie Decker.
If Serena didn't have anywhere to go up, and she still seemed to go up, Natalie can't go down.
Well, maybe, just maybe, it's the opposite. She comes back and she's even worse. There's that too. You think there's no place to go down, but you just said you didn't think that there's any space for Serena Williams to go up, but you don't think there's any space for Natalie Decker to continue going down? Philip,
yes,
come on.
It could be Angie Pilkington behind the wheel.
There you go. But let me sandwich this again with compliments. Congratulations to Natalie and her husband. It's, again, like I said, it is a beautiful thing to bring a child onto this earth. It's a blessing and a fantastic thing to do. So wish all the best for them, for both of them, and moving forward with having a kid. So let's move forward to tipping your cap and shaking your head. But before that, I got an ad read for Bojangles. Enjoy the southern charm of Bojangles, where every bite takes you on a journey to the heart of Carolina comfort food. Founded in 1977, Bojangles has been serving up mouth-watering chicken. Speaking of which, my mouth is watering right now. Flaky biscuits and refreshing iced tea with the side of warm smiles for over 45 years. Big shout out to the Charlottesville, Winchester, Harrisonburg, and Stanton Bojangles stores for sponsoring the 2024 Bojangles Perfect Week Challenge. You can actually, right now, as we're recording this, actually, if you're listening to this on Thursday, you probably can't. But, oh no, you can. But you can submit your preseason week 2 predictions for the 2024 Bojangles Perfect Week Challenge. Visit oklistenhere.com today for more information. Philip, tipping your cap and shaking your head, which would you like to start off with?
Let's shake our head first. I'm gonna let you go first.
Go ahead. All right. Well, I'm shaking my head at Natalie Decker for deciding to retire. I'm kidding. I'm just digging that hole. I'm digging a hole for myself. It's what I'm doing right now. Someone's gonna dig this episode up in like 10 years and cancel me whenever I'm a millionaire. No, seriously, I want to shake my head to Austin Dillon and the number 3 team, but like I said earlier, they are still in a better position now than they were before Sunday's race. So I feel like reasonably I can't shake my head to them. I mean, they did kind of what they had to do. So I'm kind of going to flip things here. I know you want me to shake my head, but I'm going to tip my cap to the 3 team. They took a gamble. I mean, I'm sure somewhere along these lines, they had to have known this could get us in deep shit, but we need to do something. Let's go out and do something, and that's what they did. It didn't pay off for them, but they did get a win. They did get the money from the win, and I mean, you gotta respect the nuts that it took to pull off a move like that. So that's what I'm shaking my head to, Philip. Who are you shaking your head to?
Sounds like you're shaking your head and tipping your cap to the same group. So I'm gonna shake my head to the guy who's the reason we're having this conversation.
Whoa, whoa, whoa,
Cole
whoa.
Custer, you are not even on the same lap as Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Why
Oh,
are you
okay.
cutting over his nose and causing a wreck? Stenhouse is down there minding his own business. He's going to pass you. You're like 3 laps down. Stenhouse is on the lead lap. You cause a wreck, and now we've got all this craziness going on that wouldn't have happened if you could just drive. Come on, Cole Custer.
Well,
No, it's not even Cole Custer. It's Ryan Preece. I don't even know who drives the 41. That's the problem. It was Ryan Preece. I'm sorry. It wasn't Cole Custer. Cole Custer's in the Xfinity Series. It was Ryan Preece. See, I don't even know. That's how bad.
regardless,
On,
the point still stands. See, and I'll admit I started to react to what you started to say because earlier I got in a little tiff with someone on Twitter because they blamed Stenhouse for yesterday's events. I think people obviously don't pay attention to Stenhouse except for like me and one other kid named Ryan or something like that on Twitter. Like there are not many of us Stenhouse fans out there, and so my whole thing is like. I'm glad you're not blaming Stenhouse on this because people will take a look at the wreck that happened before that led us into overtime and they'll blame it on Stenhouse because people are just hating on Stenhouse right now. Like, I get that he's not the best driver. He kind of disrupts a few races every now and then whenever he's in the back of the pack. So, I mean, I get it, but you can't just default to hating on Stenhouse when it's not his fault that this happened. Like, that was clearly a Ryan Preece issue. So, that's all I have to say about that.
Stenhouse held his line. Preece didn't.
Exactly. So,
all right, who you have you? I guess you've already done both.
I mean, I've kind of done both.
You have another one?
I guess if I'm really gonna have to shake my head to someone, I wish I could talk about the performance on the track here, but I really don't have much to say. I mean, about the performance on the track, I guess I'm just gonna shake my head to Joey Logano for doing what he did on pit road. I know I'm getting a little serious here, but you just can't do that, obviously. I went through that tangent earlier, so I'll be shaking my head to Joey Logano.
Well, I know a lot of people. I kind of try to go with different ones here because a lot of people in these answers, with like checkered flags and black flags and hot and not all the stuff they do on Series 6 and NASCAR already brought up the tires in NASCAR, which I agree with. We've already hit on that. I'm going to tip my cap to Matt Swiderski, I believe is how you say it, the crew chief for Daniel Suarez, to put those tires on when he did and go out there and win that stage and get that playoff point. It ended up working out because they had a good finish, but had they not had a good finish, had they been lapped on the one time they were not on the better tires and everybody else was, this still would have been my tip in my cap because at the end of the day, they are outside the top 10 in points. They are well outside the top 10 in points. They need playoff points, and the only way for them to get them is win races and win stages. They had at the time, what looked like a back half of the top 20 car, and they're running a back half top 20 position. They go out there, they put the tires on, they win the stage, and another stage and another playoff point for Daniel Suarez and what could be his last opportunity to get one between now and the end of the regular season. So good job, Matt Swiderski. Gambling, it paid off, and you got your guy a playoff point.
There you go. I like that. I like that tip in your cap. That was a good one. All right. Well, we'll move forward here since we are nearing an hour of recording to our Michigan preview. So first and foremost, I'll get my stats in and over with. Of the active drivers, Joey Logano and Kyle Larson have the most wins at Michigan International with 3 wins each. Chase Elliott has the best average finishing position in 13 races. He has AVP of 10.2. Next in line is Ty Gibbs at 10.5 over 2 races, so take that how you will. Kyle Larson is at 10.9 over 15 races. Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, and Brad Keselowski are sitting at 12.3 over 27, 33, and 26 races. Last season, Chris Buescher won his second race in a row here and would go on to win win at Daytona 3 weeks later. That was the best 5-stretch race for Buescher. So, look, I know that I said a few weeks ago that I was off this take, but if there was ever a time for Buescher to secure, I mean, I know he's on the bubble right now, but if there was ever a time for him to start getting momentum, this is the time to start looking at Buescher to start gaining momentum. So that's my Michigan preview. Philip, what can you tell us about Michigan?
I haven't done a lot of research, but really slammed now that college football. It's not here for the fans, but it's here for the media members. But hey, look, this is NASCAR's fastest track, is what they call it. You really do average really big speeds here because you don't have the restrictor plate. This is in the backyard of the manufacturers. There is extra pride to winning here. All the execs are going to be there at the track, especially now that you only run Michigan one time a year. It's a track that has brought a lot of entertainment during this Gen 7 car, and it's a track where some very famous losing streaks have come to an end. You think of Dale Earnhardt Jr. when he won there in June of 2012. His last race win had come in June of 2008, also at Michigan. It was a complete 4 years since he had won. So you don't count anybody out when it comes here. Well, anybody who drives for a big team out when it comes here, but look, expect the normal players, like the teams and crew chiefs who set up fast race cars and expect the most talented drivers to wheel and deal that thing around. You can almost run wide open here, but if you do run almost wide open, you're going to chew up the tires. So you got to, even though it's a track that doesn't really eat tires, it can be kind of easy to blister them, I think, a little bit. It's easy to slide those back rights because you almost can gun it all the way around, especially once some rubber gets laid down. So got to be patient, and it's guys can get a long way ahead of you. It's a 2-mile track. It's a big track. It's the only 2-mile track now on the circuit now that Fontana's gone, and when Fontana was here, it was a lot more flat in the corners. So they call it NASCAR's fastest track, and it always produces good racing. 3 races this weekend. We got ARCA Friday, Xfinity Saturday, and Cup on Sunday, and I have not even pulled up the entry lists, but we're short on time anyways, so
yep,
it's all good.
So we'll skip over it. So moving forward, the Backstretch Challenge, unfortunately, I do not have the results ready from the last time we did it for this episode, so I will post them on X as soon as I get them up. I do know the last race that we did was Pocono, for what it's worth. So, Philip, we will move forward from there, make our selections for the Michigan race. I see here that I do have the results for Pocono. I guess
I must have done them right after Pocono.
I guess I must have. So I'll go over those real quick and we'll zoom through this. So I had Hamlin, Elliott, Reddick, and Byron with Bubba Wallace in my garage, and they finished 2nd, 9th, 6th, and 4th, and gave me an average finishing position of 5.2. Phil, you had Larson, Truex, Bell, Busch, and you had Ty Gibbs in your garage. And you had 13th, 8th, 12th. Busch wrecked, so we activated Ty Gibbs. He finished 27th, giving you an average finishing position of 15th, which puts us at a record of, Philip, you have 12 wins, and I have 7 wins, and of course we have the 1 tie. So, that said, I still, do we know how we determine who picks first, or who decides?
I think whoever lost last week just gets to choose whether they want to pick first or...
Okay, I'm writing that down.
But let's figure out who we're keeping first. So I'm going to keep Larson and Bell.
Okay. Larson, Bell. And I'm going to keep Hamlin, and I want to keep Reddick. I actually want to keep Reddick. All right.
I'll pick first.
Okay.
Since you cut Chase Elliott, and I'll take Chase Elliott.
Okay. All right. With that said, give me Gibbs. He's still so due for a win. So give me Gibbs, and give me Blaney. Give me some variety here. 3 Toyotas. Give me a Ford.
Austin Dillon. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm writing it down. No takebacks.
Dang, you got Denny. You know what? The summer slump's over. Even though you had a rough week last week, give me Willie B.
All right, and who you putting in your garage?
You know what? I'm going to take your boy, your championship pick boy. I'm going to take Buescher.
Damn it, that's who I was going to pick. All right, well, I guess give me Mr. 50K himself. Give me Logano. I'll take Logano. So, all right. So we got Michigan. Philip, I am putting in this week because where did they go after Michigan?
Daytona.
Okay. So I am putting it in my calendar to text you. What are your picks for Daytona? And I'll hop on a call with you or something, but I'm going to call you at some point and we'll get it done. Okay.
We can do the little Twitter thing that you were trying to do tonight, since it'll be a brief episode.
Oh, that's a good
15, 20 minutes.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we'll do that. All right. Perfect. All right. Perfect. So sum things up. You have Larson, Bell, Elliott, Byron, and Buescher. I have Hamlin, Reddick, Gibbs, Blaney, and Logano. All right. Philip, weekly trivia. Do you even have anything for me, or are we skipping this segment tonight?
I have two, and I'll come up with a third.
Okay, go for it, because I have none.
Oh, no, I have three. Now that I think about it, I do have three.
Okay.
All righty. So, Austin Dillon
Okay.
won a Cup Series race.
Okay.
And is not guaranteed to go to the playoffs. Who is the last full-time, so don't say Shane Van Gisbergen, Cup Series driver to win a regular season race but not participate in the playoffs?
To win a regular season race and not participate in the regular season? Can you
not participate in the playoffs?
In the playoffs, that's what I meant. Can you give me like an era? Like
recent. Like it's in the playoff era.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. I'm trying to think because it's not going to be one of Hendrick's guys, not JGR's guys. I'm just going to go off on a limb here and say for some reason I want to say Kurt Busch.
Kurt Busch would be correct because he got injured.
Are you serious? Okay, cool. I'll take it. I trust whenever I say. I mean, I had no reason to pick him. I was just kind of like, I guess maybe Kurt Busch. So I was thinking, like, who's someone that like it wasn't like a huge driver, maybe middle tier driver who didn't make it. And okay, so perfect. Hang on, sorry, I'm typing in trivia questions. So since we're going to Michigan, okay.
Oh gosh, I've done no Michigan research.
Okay,
it's gonna be bad.
Here we go. You know this from history class. What U.S. president played for the University of Michigan?
Oh, this is tough because I know they're one of the 5 schools to have a president and a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Obviously, the Super Bowl winning quarterback is Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr.
I hate the way you said that.
Okay. Who was it? Somebody obviously somewhat recent because he played football there. Okay, Hoover was one of them. He went to Stanford. Jimmy Carter.
Do you want me to give you a hint that may give it away if you remember your history correctly?
No. Was it Eisenhower?
It was not Eisenhower. I'm going to give you a hint just because it's a fun little hint that the people can learn something and they're like going to remember 20 years down the road in a random conversation. But your hint is he is the only president to never win an election.
Oh, Gerald Ford.
There you go. So,
yeah.
All right. What you got for me?
All right. So, this Sunday was not the first time the 3 has right-reared the 11 at Richmond. In 1986, when Dale Earnhardt right-reared the 11, who was driving the 11?
Was it Darrell? Was it DW?
It was Darrell.
There you go. And it's a good thing I read books. I read Darrell Waltrip's book like a month ago, and that little tidbit. I know they had a bunch of tips back then, so there's that. All right. I'm trying to find. Shoot. I'm sorry, Philip. I don't have anything good for you. Okay, here we go. Sticking with the Michigan theme. Which Michigan Wolverines player won the Heisman Trophy in 1997?
Too recent to be Desmond Howard because he had just won Super Bowl MVP. It's not him. It's too old to be Tom Brady, who also never won a Heisman Trophy. Give me a side of the ball.
Okay, hang on. I'll get it for you. Seriously, you're not going to tell me his damn position, but you'll tell me, okay, defense. Oh,
I have no idea.
This is interesting. A defensive Heisman Trophy winner.
Is it Charles Woodson?
There you go. That's it. Yep.
Okay. I don't know why I said no idea, and I was like, wait, defensive Heisman winner 97 got to be Charles Woodson.
All right. Give me another.
All right. So this is a little off topic. It's NASCAR. So from 2006 through 2010, Jimmy Johnson won every NASCAR Series championship.
Okay.
However, he was sandwiched among a different driver who won in 2005 and 2011. Which driver sandwiched Jimmy Johnson's 5 consecutive championships?
All right. Well, Phil, I'm just going to be point blank with you. I'm going to if you're on YouTube, you can look. But I have got a neat little cheat sheet here of all the NASCAR Cup Series champions from, what is that, 65 all the way to 2019.
So the whole modern era.
So
I got to come up with another question.
Well, the answer to the question is Tony Stewart, Philip. I'm smart.
It is. Ask me your third one, and then I'll come up with a third.
Okay. Before, obviously, last year's national championship, what year did the Michigan Wolverines football team last win a national championship?
I want to say it was early 90s. Colorado won in 91, and they split it with Georgia Tech. Was it 92?
It was not 92. I put it into my AI program. I said, make me a list of every single college football champion, and it is literally, we're in the 50s right now, and it's still going.
You don't even know the answer.
Oh, I know the answer. I know the answer.
Oh. Okay.
I will.
Was it in the early 90s? Am I even close to right?
You're close, but not entirely. It's late 90s. Okay. Oh well, shit! That kind of gives it away. Just guess 5 years. You'll get it, Philip.
So it wasn't. So the first year I think of the BCS was 99.
It was 98. It was the year before the BCS.
Yeah, the BCS. Mm-hmm. That's what I was going to say, either 97 or 98.
Okay, so it was 97. So since we kind of worked through that one, I kind of led you to the well. There were 2 named national champions that year. Who was the other one that year?
It's either Nebraska or Oklahoma.
It's Nebraska.
Okay.
Yeah, either one of those 2 would have been good picks, but it was Nebraska. Nebraska was. He had 1, 2, 3.
All right, so since we're talking about Michigan, you're wearing a Carolina hat. What player in the national championship game against Carolina was playing for Michigan and accidentally called a timeout when the team did not?
What was his name? I remember that happening. Shit. I remember that happening, and I remember them being penalized for it, and I have it in my head. But I don't. Is it someone that's relevant in the NBA today?
Oh, not today. I mean, this was in 93.
Oh, 93. Sorry.
I think he had a decent NBA career. I can look up his NBA career. Your hint is he was part of the Fab Five.
Okay, yeah. I couldn't name the Fab Five. My life depended on it.
Yeah, well, all right. I will tell you, crap, that would because it's not one of the big two. All right, I will tell you this: the big
Hold on,
two out of the
I'm
Fab Five that everybody you hear now is Juwan Howard and Jalen Rose. It is not Juwan Howard, who's currently the coach at Michigan, nor Jalen Rose, who's on like NBA, one of those talk shows.
Is it Chris Webber?
So the other three, it is Chris Webber.
Okay.
I was about to name off the other three and see if it.
Sorry,
ranked
I will admit I did look up who's a part of the Fab Five, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, I was going to read you off the other three names, which would have been Chris Webber, Jimmy King, and Ray Jackson. So
yeah, so
there we go.
Sweet.
Exactly an
hour and 15 minutes. Yep, absolutely. Well, hey, if you're still listening up to this point, we appreciate you guys for sticking around. Tune back in about 2 weeks. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at OKLH Dawson. Like Philip said, I'm starting to explore into the X spaces a little bit more. So tune in there a little bit. We'll do our Backstretch challenge on X next week. And then, of course, you can follow Philip at PhilipPilk98. Go see us there. Check out all of our content. Check out all of our content on OKListenHere.com. And we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks so much.